To a seat. We're going to get started in just a few seconds. Thank you. Front here too, so just make your way up. Make yourself comfortable. Well, thank you all. You all quieted down pretty quickly. That's great. I want to welcome you to the special City Commission meeting tonight for the State of the City Address by Mayor Chuck Scheper. My name is Larry Klein. I'm the city manager. It's my distinct honor tonight to introduce Mayor Scheper. But first, I'd like to introduce our city commission, Mayor Pro Tem Sherry Kieran, sitting up front. Commissioner Steve Casper. Commissioner Steve Frank. And Commissioner Sean Masters. I would not even want to try to introduce all the dignitaries here tonight, but I do want to extend a special welcome to our neighbors, the City of Newport, Mayor Jerry Peluso, his city manager, Tom Fromey, and Newport Housing Director and former Newport Mayor, Tom Godulli. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being here. As you know by now, most of you have probably had a chance to meet Mayor Scheper. You know his long history with the city and love of this city. And I can tell you the last 99 days, he's been working very hard, along with all of our city staff. And I think what you're going to see tonight, you won't be disappointed. And with that, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mayor Chuck Scheper for his State of the City address. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry, and thank you all for being here tonight. For those who were here on Thursday, I apologize for some repetition of the work, or of the kind of the bad news. But I assure you, there will be good news towards the end. I also want to warn you, it's going to be it's a long speech. Somebody told me that it wasn't long, that it was substantive. So. Hopefully you'll keep that in mind, but it's probably going to take about 40 minutes. It takes a lot to kind of go through the challenges that we're facing, but we are going to get to the specific 10-point plan. So, but before I get into talking about the challenges that we face, I do want to say first and foremost to Commissioners Karen, Casper, Frank, and Masters. Thank you for asking me to take on this charge as mayor, and thank you for promoting open, honest, and respectful dialogue about the challenges the city is facing. And thank you for your support, engagement, and collaboration, which have led to the substance of this report, which is really not my report, it's our report. And so, in our plan of action to make Covington a great city. And since I took this oath of office exactly 99 days ago today, I had a goal to deliver something within 100 days, so I came in under budget, something that's unusual in the city. But in any event, so everybody's been asking me, how's it going? And I'd have to say the responses are somewhat evenly mixed. It's usually 50%, congratulations, and 50% condolences. So, but universally, folks are optimistic about change and the need for change. And they always say, let me know what I can do to help. So you're going to hear more about that later. And you might be asking, how I was drafted to take on this role as mayor. And my involvement really with the city began 13 years ago when then Mayor Denny Bowman asked me to lead a commission to review the city operations. I told him then, and I made a promise to the 20-plus volunteers who contributed time and thousands of hours of time and effort, that I wasn't going to let the report gather dust on a shelf. So unfortunately, there wasn't enough, maybe there wasn't enough of a crisis or political will to tackle some of the more sensitive issues. But of the 90 recommendations and $5 million a year of savings, about only $1 million of it was implemented. In considering this appointment, I also reflected on my personal cancer journey nearly 20 years ago. My journey has given me a perspective that I value and appreciate every day. And it instills in me a sense of urgency to get things done and to help others now, because I often say life's too short. So you have to take advantage of every opportunity because you never know when it will be there again. And that's why I was willing to accept this opportunity as mayor now, because I love the Cov. I even have a T-shirt that says it. So I came into this role with open eyes and ears. I know we are facing many challenges. Some would say it is a crisis. We have faced many of the challenges for years, and these challenges will keep our city from achieving greatness if we don't face them now. Greatness may seem impossible to those who cannot dream, or those who don't see the potential of our citizens, our employees, and yes, even our leadership. I do see the potential, and so do my fellow commissioners. But it's not just up to the mayor and the commissioners and the city employees to make Covington a great city. It's up to all of us. And before I get into how we're going to do that, let me just ask, how many folks here have read the book Good to Great? I don't often read management books or management theories, but that's one that kind of resonated with me because it told the story of true life stories. And one in particular that I noted was one about Kroger, a grocery chain headquartered just across the river in Cincinnati. And they compared it with A&P. Both Kroger and A&P were old-line companies heading into the 70s. Both companies had nearly all their assets invested in traditional grocery stores. Both companies had strongholds outside of the major growth areas of the United States, and both companies knew the world around them was changing. Yet one of these two companies confronted the brutal facts of the reality head-on. That company completely changed its entire way of doing business. The other company stuck its head in the sand, and for them it was business as usual. The bottom line is that Kroger confronted the facts in a disciplined manner, and A&P did not. Kroger now has grown to over 2,500 stores, over 300,000 employees. A&P has less than 100 stores. That's quite a story. So let's start by confronting the brutal facts about Covington. Understanding government finances is a challenge, but the bottom line is real simple. We have been spending more than we are taking in. I'm not saying we're broke, but if the city government were a business or a household, we'd be in real trouble. So here are 10 major long-term problems that we are facing. The first one relates to our cost of medical insurance or medical coverage per employee. Our health care costs have been escalating over the last 12 years at a compound annual growth rate of about 12%. In 2010, that cost had escalated to over $20,000 per employee. That compares with a benchmark for the Kentucky governmental sector of about $9,500. And you can see the red dots that I've added to the graph show that benchmark over the last this period of time. This was one of the recommendations we made back in the Scheper report that never got implemented. And you can see what's happened in terms of that significantly escalating cost. The current plan just simply is not sustainable. No deductibles, no co-insurance payments. And as a result, the costs have escalated to a point where it's challenging the financial stability of the city. The second brutal fact is related to our pension costs. And if you go back, again, these charts show, the blue line shows the funding for hazardous duty employees. The red line shows non-hazardous duty. And it's grown from, just talking about the blue line, it's gone from about 16% in 2003 to about 36% in this current year. But it's projected to go to 55% by 2030. We're not funding this particular benefit even at the full amount of the current year accrual, meaning we're in a hole and we keep digging a deeper ditch. And so this is an issue that needs to be addressed in Frankfurt because all of the pension plans are dictated, in a sense. They're state plans, and that's the challenge. The challenge that we face, though, is the funding for that keeps escalating every year and will continue to do so. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The fact interest rates are so low, that historically has been a big component of how you fund pension benefits going forward. Interest rates are historic lows. That's good news if you want to borrow money. It's bad news if you're trying to invest. People are living longer, and that's a good thing. I think we all think that's probably a good thing. But that also extends the liability into a much longer period of time. And there are medical benefits associated with this as well. Those costs, as you've seen, have escalated rather significantly. So this is a real issue, and we have to, again, confront this as a challenge to the city. Just for comparison purposes, in the private sector, they've addressed this issue, and they've gone primarily to what are called defined contribution plans. So rather than committing to a particular benefit, they may just fund the pensions based on salaries, and they put in a certain amount every year. Last year, the private sector averaged about 8% on a comparative basis in terms of funding for defined contribution plans, and overall it was about 11%. So a pretty significant difference. Population. Covington, back in the 30s, had as many as 65,000 people. You can see the chart which illustrates that our population has continued to decline over this period of time. In the last census, we've gone down about another 5%. We're down to about just over 40,000 people. That's again a reality we have to face. We have fewer residents living here. We need to think in terms of what are the things that we need to do to improve the quality of life, and how do we attract and grow more residents in the city? How do we grow more in different types of housing in the city that will make it attractive? I can tell you there are a lot of folks who really want to move into the urban core. We're going to hear more from Puma in the coming weeks about how the urban core really is we have so many assets that we just need to polish up, and I think that we can reverse this trend. Revenues. Our revenues, this chart is really pretty dramatic. It starts, I know you can't see, can anybody in the back see what year that starts at? No, I guess not. 1985, good guess. It starts in 1985 and shows a 24-year climb in our payroll tax revenues. That's a primary funding source for our city operations. That's about $800,000 a year of increase in payroll taxes from 1985, sustained for 24 years, to a peak of about $24 million in 2009. 2009 is where that peak is. I can't show you because I don't have a pointer. I can't get to it. But the peak there is 2009. The last 3 years, we've had a decline in those payroll tax revenues. If you're wondering what those arrows indicate, the first arrow, about 1989 or 90, is the opening of River Center 1. The second arrow is the movement of Fidelity to our city. And I saw Paul Smith here earlier. He was the first manager of the operations. And then the third arrow pointing down is the opening of River Center 2. Those were three significant events that were the fuel that really drove a good part of that increase. So I think the point is we've had very good times. The trend has been declining in the last 3 years. That dip in if you can't see, the last 5 years are what we're projecting with flat revenues. But you've all read about the loss of Omnicare and AC Nielsen. That's that last little dip. That's about $1.2 million of reduction in payroll that we have to find a way to fund. And so this is a brutal fact that we have to face. Our payroll revenues are declining. Attached to this issue is the fact that our payroll tax rate is 2.5%. The rate across the river is 2.1%. We have, and there's a 2 million square foot glut of office space in downtown Cincinnati. So if we think we've lost our last businesses across the river, I think we're fooling ourselves. unless we fix the systemic issue and the problem and the challenge. The first two bars are Covington and Newport. In Newport, I know Mayor is facing many of the same issues and challenges that we are. Lexington is the next one shown. They're at 2.25. Louisville is at 2.20. Cincinnati, 2.1. And then Indianapolis at 1.62. We need to be competing with these other. We're not just competing with Cincinnati across the region. We're competing with other cities in our region. So we need to think in terms of how we can focus and get to a sustainable competitive advantage. And our payroll tax rate is a problem. We actually have a cap at 106,000, whereas Cincinnati doesn't have a cap. So there is a limitation in terms of what that 2.5%. But again, we need to be able to compete. Brutal fact number 6. Is anybody getting tired of this? Infrastructure. The cost of delaying maintenance. We have a lot. We have a general fund, which kind of pays for the bills on a day-to-day basis. And then we have infrastructure needs or capital needs. Our bill or our budget for that on a long-term basis is about $32 million. And we have to start addressing that. We've been funding it at about $1.5 million a year, and that's an increase over what we were funding. It was largely ignored for a good part of time. And we can borrow against our other assets. We're paying down our debt about $1.5 million. So that gives us about $3 million a year to help fund this liability. What the challenge is, look at this graph. It shows the cost of delaying maintenance. If we're able to get to a street, for example, and do routine maintenance, and that's the first part of the slide or the slope of the graph, it costs about $13,000 per lane mile to do routine maintenance. You move down the slide, and it takes about $25,000 to do preventive maintenance. And if that doesn't work, if we keep kicking that can down the road, it gets to rehabilitation. That's about $60,000 per lane mile. And if we've really kicked the can down the road, I'm not sure we have a road to even kick it down, but reconstruction cost is about $500,000 per lane mile. So by delaying and deferring this issue, our cost can go from $13,000 to $500,000. And that's why we can't keep delaying and not recognizing that that's a challenge that we have to face. The seventh brutal fact is something that's called the Evergreen Clause. And we have in our union contracts, and we recognize that employees have the right to self-organize and bargain collectively. And Covington has 3 bargaining units. And I've met with the city's union leaders, and frankly, I like them. They're good people. They want what everyone wants: reasonable pay and benefits. And since becoming mayor, I've learned about this major stumbling block in the contracts is what's commonly referred to as the Evergreen Clause. That clause says that all terms and conditions of an existing contract shall continue in effect until a new contract is approved. It's one of the reasons why it's our new contracts. It's been over a year since we've had a new contract. It all sounds reasonable, but I think there have been unintended consequences of having some of these provisions, and that is the fact that we keep delaying and really being able to come to resolution. And I think the ultimate question is, what is really in the best interests of the city, its citizens, and its city employees? We need an alternative dispute resolution mechanism when the city and the unions cannot agree on an issue. And I think a binding arbitration system might be a good option. And that's for the benefit of the city, its employees, and there's a bigger picture here, and it's about the long-term viability of the city and our employees. Our surplus funds, or if you want to think of them as, that's our cash reserves, have been declining. And I realize it's challenging kind of looking at these charts. But the green line shows the goal of city's operation. We should have 10% of our budget set aside in a surplus fund. The red line shows 5%. That's kind of the minimum threshold. So back in the blue line shows where we are. And it starts in 2001 and goes to 2012. And you can see over the last 3 or 4 years, since 2009, what happened then? Our payroll taxes started going down, but our expenses didn't go down at the same rate that our payroll taxes were going down. So we started eating away at our reserves. Our already somewhat minimal reserves. And at the end of last year, we were at about $800,000 of reserves. And we're projected to get down to about $300,000 by June 30th of this year. That's less than 1 week's worth of payroll, just for comparative purposes. That's not sustainable on a long-term basis. And I want to show you another slide. We've taken projections. One of the things I first asked for is we need a 5-year projection. We have to look at how bad is this picture. And so we forecasted out. We said, what if our revenues are flat, despite the fact they've been declining the last 3 years? What if our medical inflation is only 7%, despite the fact it's been 12%? What if we have just the increases in the pension benefits that KLOC has told us about? What happens to our surplus position? That's the blue line. That's the precipitous drop in the blue line. And it brings to about a $20 million deficit. $20 million in 5 years. I'm getting close to the end. State and federal funding. How many folks here think that we're going to have an increase in state and federal funding in the coming years? Nobody? The stark reality is we're not alone in facing these serious financial challenges. The headline last week in Governor Beshear's budget was, cut, cut, cut. We're not alone. So we need to figure out how to fix these long-term financial problems, because we can't rely on Frankfurt or Washington to bail us out. And I do promise there's only one more bit of bad news. And actually, it's kind of a part of good news, and it's about our green space. The amount of parkland in the graph shows Kenton, Boone, Campbell, and then it goes to Lexington, Louisville, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. So if you look at the 3 counties, we average about 1.5% of our land mass is parks. And you can see just from the graph that that's significantly different than our competitor cities, so to speak. Kenton County at 1.5%, about 40% of the park is DeVue Park, which is 100% within the city boundary. So if we just looked at Covington in isolation, our rate might be 10%. But we are a region. This is an issue that is a regional issue. We need to find ways to enhance and grow our green space so that we can be more attractive to people who want to move here and are considering, whether they want to go to Louisville or Lexington or Cincinnati. We need to make sure that we're on top of it. I can see that Natalie's smiling now. So this was the part the other day where I said, we need to, I kind of stopped the presentation after Thursday, and I was kind of surprised because people were upbeat in a way, because I was giving them little thoughts about how we can solve this, and I do believe we can solve this. But unless you really confront the brutal facts and figure out how we can develop a formula for success, we're just fooling ourselves. So I think we've confronted the brutal facts. We have put together a plan of action. And as they say, never waste a good crisis. I think it's brought all of you here tonight. I mean, this is an incredible turnout. And it's because you're willing to listen to what the challenges are, but you're also eager to find out what can we all do together to make this better. And so the answer, I think, is embedded in our very initials, which help to identify our city, CVG. Watch this video. Is that cool or what? The C stands for courage. We need to have the courage to face the issues head on and the courage to change. We need to have the V for the vision, which is we can't just look from an interior standpoint. We have to look outside our boundaries. We have to look for what are the best of class cities doing. We can't look in the rearview mirror for our vision, because more of the same isn't going to fix the problems of today or the problems of the future. And only with C plus V do we get G, or growth, which will, in fact, lead us to greatness. And I love the visuals. In fact, if you look at blue plus yellow equals green, you saw the growth scenarios. I think the only way we can achieve this is to work together. So, this all sounds good, and I'm sure the flashy video looks good, but let's talk specifics, how we're going to make this happen. Point number one, and by the way, we're going to have handouts in the back afterwards, so you'll have all 10 of our plan that you'll be able to take on one piece of paper. There will be a quiz in the morning, so make sure that you study it tonight. But the first point of the plan is we're going to build a stronger public-private partnership by gathering more direct input from our community in a number of ways. Number one, we're going to form a business and community advisory board, which will consist of top leaders with considerable investment in the viability of Covington. We're going to be meeting with each of our 19 neighborhood organizations in the coming months, and we're going to seek their input and support for the CVG plan. And we're going to continue to call on the 100 businesses that we launched. My fellow commissioners and I, early in the process, decided to start reaching out and getting input from some of our top, frankly, payroll taxpayers to get their perspectives. And it was interesting, the information that we have. We haven't finished the process yet, but we're going to continue and complete that process. We're also going to be working more closely with the Covington Business Council, the Latonia Business Association, and Mainstrasse Village Association to solicit feedback from the thousands of businesses that are in the city. So we're looking to partner with them and really leverage their commitment to the city. And we're going to meet with the Youth Commission. I think it's important to get the perspective of young folks. So we've got a meeting scheduled later this month. We're going to sit down and really get their thoughts as to what we should be doing as a city as well. And effective today, we're establishing a special email address where our citizens will have the opportunity to express their opinions about the plan by emailing their comments and suggestions or thoughts to cvgvoices@covingtonkentucky.gov. And I assure you that every response will be viewed. Number two, we're going to conduct an independent review of each and every department within the city. We've already received proposals from a national firm for areas where the volunteer expertise may be hard to find. In hiring such a firm, we will be able to examine how other cities have solved their difficult problems. And having said that, I think it's important to note that in the Scheper report, a good part of the 90 recommendations came from our employees. And I know that just in the meetings and conversations I've had with employees over the last 3 months, I know there are many great ideas that have been constrained for reasons of cost or political reasons. But I assure you, this is a new day, and every clear and logical voice will be heard. And the target for completing these independent reviews is the end of June, so it will leave us time to push for implementation yet this year. We promised transparency with regard to the findings, and after discussing the recommendations with staff, the commission, and our advisory board, we will publish them on our website and invite you to comment as well. In order to help pay for this, I'm going to pledge $15,000 or half my mayor's salary and promise to raise the rest of the monies in the private sector. So it won't be a strain at all to our city finances. Thank you. Our third action item is we're going to complete these union negotiations. All 3 unions, which account for about 80% of our city employees, have been without the new contract for over a year. I'm not faulting either side, but one of the reasons, again, of these protracted discussions, I believe, is the evergreen clause. I've met with the representatives from each of the unions. I think they understand the seriousness of the issues that we're facing, and I also believe that the representatives are willing to sit at the bargaining table and resolve the differences. The key elements that I see in terms of a new contract need to include basic deductibles and co-insurance features in our health plan. Secondly, education and wellness programs for the new health plan. And in fact, when I was talking, I think it was with Brian Valenti at the fire union, he was sort of lamenting the fact that the police union, that we didn't really do much in the way of education. And he's right. And I'll give you an example. If somebody needs to have an MRI performed, the cost of that MRI might, in fact, my wife just had one on her knee. She probably doesn't want me talking about her bad knee, but it can range anywhere from $500 to $5,000. So if you don't have any skin in the game, you might just go to the closest place available. Well, I can tell you, before she had her knee done, I kind of checked it out, and I found that I could, have it done, perfectly well for $500. And then I found out that if I paid with my credit card, I could get a 10% discount up front. $50 is $50. So I save some money, the city saves some money, and so working together, we can do a whole lot more. And I think we need to do a better job of education. Needs to include 3, fair compensation, and 4, a dispute resolution mechanism. I'm willing, and with the support and endorsement of our city manager and with our commissioners, my fellow commissioners, to join the discussions and try to accelerate a fair resolution of the current outstanding issues. And I believe that we're going to get this done in the next 30 to 60 days. And getting our health care costs to a reasonable level, I believe, is sort of the linchpin of this comprehensive plan. And I'm confident that we're going to get there. You can look at the chart, and that's the chart that I showed you before. The green line, you might be guessing, who is that or what is that? That's Kenton County. They had a very similar plan from 1999 through 2005. And you can see in 2005, their costs were almost identical to the cities on the blue line. In 2006, they implemented the basic managed care features that we are talking about today. Reasonable, but it allows us to have an alignment of our interest. Everybody has skin in the game, so to speak. And their costs have been relatively flat since then. In 2010, they actually hit the target of about $9,500 per employee. This is a clear demonstration that we can do it. Number 4, we're going to examine every expenditure from a starting point of 0. It's called zero-based budgeting. So rather than just starting with the prior year's actual and say, what do we need to add or what do we need to subtract, we're going to go back down to 0. We're going to say, do we need to spend this? We're going to challenge every expenditure. If it's not required for regulatory or legal purposes, or if it doesn't pay a dividend to our citizens or our businesses, then we're going to challenge and say, why are we spending it? We should eliminate it. So we're going to be more thoughtful and conscious of the challenges that we face. And fortunately, we're going to have input from these independent reviews, presumably some preliminary results that maybe will help us when we get to that point. Number 5, we need to think regionally and consider shared services or even privatization if there's a significant cost benefit without impacting public safety. And one such measure that has been studied multiple times over the years, including a recommendation in the Scheper report back in 1999, is related to dispatch or 911 services. Each time the conclusion has been the same. Consolidation will save money without jeopardizing public safety. We are the only county in the state that has 3 different dispatch providers. Multiple systems can cause uncertainty in identifying which emergency service should be responded to. And let's face it, most of the calls are coming from cell phones. So if you're driving along 275, you pass through 5 different dispatch areas in the span of probably a 10-minute drive. Where does it go? Who does it get handed off to? And as you know, handoffs add time, and in an emergency, time is of the essence. From a cost perspective, the software for each of these systems needs to be upgraded periodically. For example, Covington just upgraded its software at a cost of about $1 million. The upgraded system has the capacity to handle not only the rest of Kenton County, but it could handle the dispatch needs of Boone and Campbell counties as well. I applaud the efforts of the 3 county judge executives who are considering a long-range plan to potentially consolidate all dispatch services. This is an issue that simply can't be ignored any longer. Number 6. So far I've been kind of focusing on cost issues and things that might be more related to improving our service, but now I want to talk about things that will impact our growth and help us grow our revenues. Item number 6 is we're going to find a way to optimize the value of the nearly 300 properties that the city owns. Many of these properties actually have a negative value in that they are vacant and costing the city thousands of dollars to maintain. We've already inventoried the properties. We're developing plans and strategies together with the Catalytic Development Fund, the Center for Great Neighborhoods, and private developers to ensure the highest value to our citizens. We also will consider our need for more green space and how some of these vacant properties, in conjunction with the various neighborhood organizations, can convert some of these blighted buildings and lots into pocket parks, urban farms, or even a dog park. But I think it's very important to not just use any proceeds that we get from these either sales or transactions or even transfers, but that they go into the general fund. We need to use them to address our issues with regard to the infrastructure, things that aren't going away. That chart that showed that we have a $32 million bogey out there that we have to start addressing. Or development projects, one-time kind of efforts or investments that will pay dividends in terms of long-term revenues. Number 7, we're going to make it much easier to do business with the city. From the calls that we've made, we've heard from our citizens and from the businesses that this is a problem that many encounter with Covington, too much red tape. We're going to change that. Accordingly, we have already formed what I call a barrier removal team, consisting of staff representatives from the community and also representatives from the community. And they're looking at the process of how we do business on a day-to-day basis. This cross-organizational team has already met, and I've gotten some preliminary results that first of all, they recognize the problem. There is a problem. And they're willing to take it on head on. And they see the potential for really resolving some of those and to make it much easier to do business with the city. And once again, we will share the results of these actions in the months to come. Number 8, there's only 10, so I'm getting close. We're going to form a marketing team to better tell the story of how Covington is changing. I've already received an enthusiastic response from several individuals volunteering to be on the team. For example, Mary Zala, who lives in Covington, was recently named CEO of Landor, a multinational branding company. Mary not only volunteered to serve on the marketing team, but her company, Landor, provided the template for this presentation, as well as the idea of CVG. I just sat down with her and kind of was brainstorming about the challenges we face and how we're going to confront them head on. She got together a team consisting of a number of individuals, including a number of folks who live in Covington, and they came up with that idea. And they did it for free. By the way, Landor is the primary marketing firm used by a little company across the river by the name of Procter & Gamble. So several of the teammates are here today. I think Eugene Hurd and Evie Bowerly. So let's give Mary and her team a round of applause. Number 9, we need to reduce our payroll tax rate in order to enhance our competitive position in the region. We've heard it from our large employers and small businesses alike that our payroll tax rate is just simply too high. While it may not be a significant factor for some, it is an impediment to recruiting businesses from out of our region. We do have incentives for new companies willing to relocate, but they may not be broadly known, so let me state the basics. For every company willing to relocate to Class A office space in Covington with at least $2 million in annual payroll, we will provide a 5-year incentive of 1% of the corresponding new wages for that period of time. If they have more than $20 million, we'll give them a break for 10 years. So to encourage even more interest in this program, for the balance of this year and to get the pump primed, so to speak, we're going to eliminate the minimum payroll requirements and really try to stimulate. And we're going to talk this up, so you're going to be hearing about it. Furthermore, we're committing to use the increased tax revenues that come from these new businesses. It's always about the new businesses. What are you doing for the existing businesses? Well, we're going to take those revenues from the new businesses and figure out how much that is. And starting in 2013, we're going to use that to buy down the rate or reduce the rate for all businesses in Covington. So we believe we're going to start to see some movement in terms of lowering it from that 2.5%. We're also going to take a look at the cap. I want to sit down with our business advisory group and say, what if we raise the cap from $100,000 to $200,000? We might be able to lower our rate from 2.5% to 2.45%. I can tell you if we have some movement in terms of reducing our rate, we'll probably be the only city in the country that can tell that story. That could become a national story. That could result in an aggressive marketing program, so to speak, that we can really utilize to leverage the interest and excitement going forward. Number 10, I hear a lot about the empty storefronts on Madison Avenue. What are we going to do about the empty storefronts? Well, we're going to enhance our incentives there to help fill those empty storefronts. Today, we're packaging 3 programs that exist, and we're doubling their incentive, and with a new name, Covington Revitalization Empowerment Zone, or CREZ for short. And here's what it's going to do in our center city. We're going to provide a 50% rebate on payroll taxes from business occupants for buildings at least 50 years old that have been significantly vacant for 3 years. And to encourage more immediate action for 2012, we're going to extend this tax break from 5 years to 10 years. The program was previously limited to, for existing businesses to 25%, but we're going to expand it to the same credit as new businesses if they expand at least 50% of their space. Number 2, we're going to provide a 100% match of rehab costs up to $20,000 per unit for residential use on the floors above the retail space. We know from studies and from experience in other cities, if you get more people living in the urban core, and particularly above these storefronts, we create new energy, we create new jobs, and create new enthusiasm. So this is a particular program. We've had $100,000 in the budget from CDBG monies. We're going to double that. We're going to add another $100,000. Will give us even more flexibility to try to grow that segment. Number 3, we're going to provide an incentive for new businesses to fill up our empty storefronts. We have a program where a $500 grant per month for a 1-year period of time. And again, there's about $40,000 of CDBG monies. There's about a $20,000 grant from Duke Energy, which has been a great partner to the city. In fact, I have to pause here. I don't know if we have any representatives from Duke, but this last year, you have contributed about over $150,000 into the urban core for projects that you believe in. So we just want to say thank you for that, for believing in the city, and for making that kind of investment. And we're willing to double the match, your match, as well as the CDBG money, so that we'll have, instead of $60,000, we'll have $120,000 impacting that. That could take care of 20 empty storefronts just there. So let's give Duke a round of applause. So you think that's a crazy idea? I was trying to do my best Steve Martin impersonation, but it's all about marketing, you know. No, we're willing to invest again in individuals and businesses that are willing to invest in us. So let's go back to that gloom and doom chart for the next 5 years. By implementing CVG and estimating the impact of the 10-point plan, we will dramatically change the financial health and well-being of Covington. And if you recall the big dip down, the blue dip down, there's a purple line that now shows us going up and hitting actually the 10% threshold, which is really the hallmark of a truly healthy city. There's a lot of hard work that needs to happen to make this all come together. But that's, in our projections, we see is the potential for this city. And speaking of potential, before I conclude my remarks, I'd like to highlight some of the positive activities and assets that the city to help demonstrate our great potential. And let's start with our rivers. We don't just have one, but we have two beautiful rivers that form a good part of our border. But let's not think of them as dividers. Rather, the rivers connect us as neighbors and in exciting ways. Projects like South Bank's Riverfront Commons and Vision 2015's Licking River Greenway are going to bring us closer to the beauty that these rivers represent. Riverfront West, even as undeveloped as it is, may be the most valuable stretch of real estate in the Midwest. I love what Cincinnati is doing on the banks. Those are the kinds of amenities that are within walking distance of our urban core, which enhance our opportunities here in Covington. Recently, I met with Cincinnati Mayor Mark Mallory, and he too believes Covington has important assets that are truly regional. We pledge to work together on issues that impact all of us and try to find ways to recruit more businesses from outside our immediate area. Plus, I told him we had the best view of his city. Covington also has the potential to become a center of innovation. In business, innovation is the catalyst for growth, including attracting new businesses and creating jobs. We already have a high-tech company like C Forward and Valley Forge Composite Technologies and Systems Insight, and we have an emerging life sciences corridor based on Russell Street. Biologic, Covington's life science accelerator, currently houses 7 life science companies, including one near and dear to my heart, Bexion Pharmaceuticals. Additionally, a dozen or so entrepreneurial life science companies are considering a move to Covington when Biologic completes its building renovation on Russell Street. And so a number of the folks are here from Bexion and Biologic, and I'd like to have Dr. Ray Tagaguku stand up and the rest of the team from Biologic and Bexion. So, where's Ellen? Ellen, stand up. Where's Neil? Where's Neil? They're going to make history here in Covington. They're going to find, they have a cure for cancer. We're eager to get it to human trials, hopefully by the end of this year. In December, I presented a proclamation to Covington Latin based on their dedication of a multi-million-dollar addition to their campus on Madison Avenue. Bishop Foys is to be thanked and congratulated for his personal commitment to invest in the urban core, despite urgings to move to the suburbs. Oakley and Ava Ferris also deserve a big thank you, not only for their generosity to the school, but also their support of arts and education. There are 3 other statues around the city that are the result of their direct contribution. General Covington at Latin School, Abraham Lincoln at the Kenton County Library, Frank Duveneck at the end of Short Pike, and Andrew Carnegie at the building that bears his name. These are wonderful expressions of art and also honor great people who had a connection to Covington. Now, Oakley always says that he doesn't give money away, he invests. And studies show that if you invest $1 in the arts, it'll pay a $20 dividend. So Oakley's sitting up here front. Oakley, I'd like you to stand and have us recognize you for your... Gateway Community College is poised to make a major commitment to the urban core with a campus in Covington, which will bring life, vitality, and much-needed educational programs directly into our inner city. And that's going to lead to more jobs and fewer empty storefronts. And Dr. Hughes, who couldn't be here tonight, he sent his apologies, but believes it's going to grow to over 5,000 students from the current level of 1,000 students. That's a lot of vitality. That's a lot of commitment, and it's really, truly going to impact our city. Now, the nonprofit Catalytic Fund, you've heard me reference that. It's led by Gene Schroer, and it's at the cusp of having achieved its goal of $10 million. But it's important to note that that $10 million is going to lead to a $100 million investment in the city, in the urban core specifically. Covington, Newport, and the other river cities are going to be the beneficiaries of that. Bill Butler, the visionary leader of Corporex, who invested in Covington when no one else would take the risk. committed the first $1 million to this nonprofit entity. So thanks, Bill, for your continuing commitment to and love of Covington. So I'd like to have Jean and Bill stand up and be recognized. And we should celebrate our diversity within the city. And while we have one of the only human rights ordinances in our region, and maybe even in the country, we need to do more to welcome diversity, whether it's ethnic, social, economic, religious, or sexual orientation. Diverse communities are healthy communities. These pictures depict a project involving a diverse group of our students painting a mural in Hellentown last summer. And it included a young man that I'm mentoring at Holmes High School, Chris Bishop. Chris is here tonight. Chris, where are you? Stand up and... I'm going to talk more about mentoring later, but this, in this particular case, this project was funded by the Hale Foundation, which is also a great friend and a great contributor to the city initiative. So I don't know if Tim or Eric are here, but let's recognize the Hale Foundation as well. I like to think of the city as a mosaic of fine and distinct colors. The neighborhood signs made out of these mosaic tiles that are scattered throughout the city are not only beautiful, but they tell a story of the richness of our character and the pride that we all take in our respective neighborhoods. But at the center is the blend of all of these distinct and diverse colors to create the heart and core of the city we love, Covington. Now, one last story before I conclude. The other day I met Tess and Chris Burns. They're a young couple who see the potential of Covington. Chris is a chef who is trained under Jean Robert, and he wants to open a contemporary farm-to-table restaurant in Covington. Tess is a graphic designer who wants to open a 21st century general store with an emphasis on Covington-based products. She also leads something called the Awesome Collective, a group of individuals who want to celebrate and promote Covington's excellence, uniqueness, authenticity, and share their sense of excitement about the city. It's that type of unbridled spirit, to steal a slogan, that is the future of Covington. Tess and Chris are here tonight, so let's re-energize them. You're awesome. Where are they? We have the potential to achieve greatness. I realize my tenure as mayor will end at the end of this year, but this is not my plan. This is the plan of a unified commission. More importantly, this needs to become our plan. My mission when I took this challenge was to work collaboratively to help solve the long-standing problems so that the future leadership will be able to continue to build our city from good to great. And I believe that the CVG plan accomplishes this objective. As I mentioned, we are committed to visiting each neighborhood organization in the coming months to listen to our fellow citizens and to answer any questions. I intend to have, I've started these sessions, I call them Coffee with Chuck, but it's just an informal gathering of employees once a month. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have 4 of them, including one at a fire station and one at the police station, so that we can engage and talk directly with more employees, because I'm sure there are anxieties that always come about as a result of change. And we promise transparency. A copy of this address will be posted on our website. We promise transparency in that we're going to continue to communicate openly and honestly the findings of our independent reviews and our progress on the 10-point plan outlined tonight. In closing, I want to make 2 personal pleas. I started the presentation tonight by saying, virtually everyone I ask, what can I do? First, be a mentor. Studies show that students who have a mentor improve academic performance, behavior, and attendance in school by a significant margin. My wife Julie is a mentor, and she urged me to be a mentor too at Holmes High School. Superintendent Linda Jackson told me they could use 400 more mentors. So I offer this challenge. Consider it. Be a mentor. And I assure you that if you mentor one student, it will change 2 lives. All you have to do is be there to listen and guide. It's an investment in our community that you should be willing to make. I don't know, did you see the front page of the paper today about Ron Clark and his visit yesterday to Holmes High School? Ron has been a good friend of Julie's and mine for the last 7 or 8 years. He was a good friend through my connections at Great American. I was talking with one of their senior officers, and they were saying that Ron was looking to find a school to do a PBS special. And I said, well, I got the place for you. It's Holmes High School. Holmes has already developed, 35 classrooms? About 35 classrooms, kind of in the Ron Clark style. It's really about engagement. Ron teaches to the highest potential of the students, not to the lowest common denominator. And he energizes teachers. He's had 12,000 teachers visit their school in Atlanta. And I think we've had quite a few of our teachers in Covington go there. And they're trying to do more. But the scores that we're starting to see from those students, because of that additional engagement, it's really uplifting them. So whatever we can do to support our schools is a long-term investment that we all need to make. And I ask you again to consider mentoring. In the back, we're going to have cards, in fact. If you're interested, there'll be a little business card. And I think I've got one here. And it has contact information on it. Take it. If you don't know if you can do it, but you think you know somebody who else might be able to do it, take a card or take 2 cards. The second plea, we all need to be saleswomen for Covington. Let the folks know where you live and work. We've got these new pins, so take them. I'm sure we're going to need more. And also, talk about the CVG. Wear these pins proudly and become ambassadors for Covington. Tonight, I'd like to give special thanks to Donna, Jim, and Scott Sawyers and Guy Van Ruin of the Madison for donating this space and all the refreshments, which we're about to partake. Also, Mac Productions for all the AV equipment, which they donated. And a special thanks to our friends at Landor for the visual excitement of the CVG plan, 10-point action plan. So let's give them all a round of applause. I think I did go over budget on this one, but finally I'd like to thank all of you for your attention tonight. Thank you for your love and support of this city. I love what Commissioner Masters said on the day that I was swearing in. He said, today, we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're all Covingtonians. So working together, we will achieve CVG and make Covington a great city. Thank you all.